Hi, you guys. Kind of a serious YouTube this morning, unfortunately, but I hope you'll give it a listen to the end. So, dishing drama, Dana Wilkey was pretty serious yesterday. I drop a dishing drama, Dana Wilkey podcast episode to the Patreon members every Sunday, and it drops at 7 a.m. on Sunday. And so this week I interviewed David Brill, who was Luis Ruelas' ex-employer, and he made some really shocking claims and told stories to back the claims up. I did my best to vet David Brill, and so you'll have to see how you feel about them. I am going to play you 7 minutes of the interview today. I always release a certain amount of the show free on all listening platforms. It ranges from 7 minutes to 12 minutes to, in some cases, 25 minutes. It just depends on what the show is about. Now, I never play any of the Patreon content on YouTube or cover it on YouTube. YouTube is completely separate to the Patreon stuff. And so it's unusual that I would do what I'm going to do today, but I thought it was important. Actually, the reason that I didn't release it for free is because some of the allegations that David Brill makes against Luis Ruelas are extremely disturbing, shocking. I mean, you just have to ask someone who's listened to it. They will tell you that, for exactly the reason that I didn't. It turns out that he alleges Luis Ruelas has ties to mob people from his older days, and he was wrapped up in some really dark stuff. And, David has some real concerns about Teresa Giudice and her family, which he vocalizes in this interview. So I felt like I had to share it, but I had to share it in a way that obviously was responsible, careful, and the like. I don't know. I still don't know what I'm going to do about it. I did try to get it to Andy Cohen. I sent it to him to go listen to, because I think, honestly, based on this information, he shouldn't be shooting the show, in my opinion, because Teresa should, certainly, because she's not involved in any of this, but he should not be in any way, shape, or form on that show, Real Housewives of New Jersey. And I do think that they need to do an investigation of what David Brill is alleging from an HR perspective, because it's pretty serious stuff. And that's all I'm going to say about it. The link is in the description if you want to go listen to it for yourself and make your own decision on how you feel about David Brill's stories. My job is just to report them. Hi, you guys. Well, today is kind of a very, very difficult conversation you're going to listen to between myself and a gentleman by the name of Mr. David Brill. David hired Real Housewives of New Jersey, Teresa Giudice's husband, Luis Ruelas, back in the 90s, but 20 some odd years ago. And he was completely devastated by things that Luis Ruelas did to him. And he is going to tell me his story today. It is very disturbing. So for the beginning of the podcast, I insert some sound effects to lighten the mood, just because it's a lot. It's a lot. And so you're going to see that sort of happens in the beginning of the pod, and then it's going to kind of quiet down as his stories get going, and I think you can kind of handle it better. Many times in this interview, David says he's talking about Luis Ruelas. You'll see him establish that in the beginning of the podcast, but then as time goes on, he really is recalling all of these stories. And so, he's just, he did this, he did that. And I just wanted to be clear going into the podcast of that. David alleges a lot of things against Luis Ruelas and his associate up until 2010. He claims Luis Ruelas at one point beat him up held a gun to his head. That's the level that we're talking about in this interview. To prepare yourself, I obviously can only vet David Brill so much, but my feeling was that he was being honest and he was telling real stories, and he was truly impacted by Luis Ruelas in a scarring way for the rest of his life. And so I believe that he deserves to have a platform to tell his story. And that is what I hope to accomplish today. So David wanted me to share a quick story as to why he is so triggered by Luis Ruelas and his experience with him, which you will hear is very dark. And it's that he saw a scene on Real Housewives of New Jersey. He's been triggered by the show a few times because of, Luis Ruelas' lavish lifestyle. You'll hear him talk about that. But there's a scene where all the Real Housewives of New Jersey house husbands are sitting together with Tiki Barber. And one of them is Luis Ruelas. And David is kind of awestruck that Tiki Barber, who's one of his favorite Giant players, is sitting there with this man who's done so many horrible things, in David Brill's opinion, to him and so many other people. And I'm putting it lightly on purpose. I'll let him tell his own story. But he wanted you guys to know that he's not a hater. He just really, you'll have to see for yourself what he said. You'll understand a lot more as you listen to this interview. David has tried to get it out there that he's posted things on Yahoo Entertainment about, who he believes Luis Ruelas is and his character, to just warn people, him being worried that other people will be impacted negatively like he was. I'll leave it with you guys. Let's get into the interview with David Brill. Come on, bitch, let's go.
Listen, everything I'm going to tell you is the God's honest truth. I had a great business I started. He ran me into the ground. He stole from me. Making a living, paying the bills. I had 2 kids. I lost one of my daughters in an accident at 6 years ago. So I've had a lot of trouble in my life, but I keep bouncing back because I'm a survivor. And I'm not a hater. So anything I tell you is not meant to hate on this guy because of his success. I don't mind. Listen, I don't mind people having success. That's great. But when you do it at the hands of other people, that makes me a little upset.
Yeah, of course.
So I'm going to tell you the story now. You got the take on?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
So I was working back when I was 24, 25 with a very yuppie upscale marketing company named Jamie Marketing in Pearl River, New York. And I went from a junior executive to being a superstar. Driving a Hyundai to a BMW. I was getting clients like crazy. People loved me and my personality. And this is in the direct mail business. Mailing lists, leads, and stuff like that for people that direct mail was big. Now it's all internet. So I remember one day this kid comes in, and everyone is saying he's in his first year of college, in a 2-year college. His house just got burnt down, and they hired him as an intern, and his name was Luis Ruelas, right? And I had my own office, my own secretary, and all day long he would just hover outside and pick my brain, wanted to be my friend. And he was a little bit younger than me, and I wasn't really a big partier. I like to have a beer once in a while, but it wasn't a huge party. He'd be out with his friends and go to clubs, he was a big clubbing guy, going to the city and driving down with his fiancée, Marissa, his first wife. And so I met with we met once for dinner on a social occasion. I had a great time. Marissa's a wonderful girl. And, he always kept hounding me. We should go into business together. I go, Luis, you're 19, you don't even finish college. and he didn't know nothing about the business. He goes, I'll get the money to start us. I'll do this. I go, Louis, you guys are living in, his house burnt down, and I found out why. His father used to work for A6 sneakers, right? Back in the day, back in the 90s.
Yeah.
And his father actually got fired from ASICS for like big.
For the full scoop, head to our...
So I've been a victim of being with someone who was a narcissist that didn't have any ethical boundaries, really, was like a chip was broken, and it made him a very scary person. And I guess I'm just doing this because I don't want that to happen to someone else either, like David. This, to me, you guys, please don't put in the comments any of this BS about Team Melissa, Team Trey. Like, this is a very serious interview. This was a serious conversation. This transcends like New Jersey bull BS. Okay, so not only was I blackmailed, made afraid by a narcissist, okay, I've actually experienced what it's like when they don't want to be with you anymore, or, they start their exit, okay, and it's horrific, and there's no boundaries to what they'll do, and I am so scared for Teresa for this reason. She would, I'm sure, do exactly like I would have done, which is, defend, make excuses to the end. I'm Italian, Irish, I'm loyal to a fault. And so I have no doubt that is going to play out. And I apologize for this interview coming out in time for their beautiful wedding special. But, what can I do? Cat's out of the bag. I wasn't expecting the level that this turned out to be. Now, you guys may not be aware of this, but my ex caused me to have that white collar issue a long time ago. And you might have read it in from papers from 2013 or whatever. I was, all those charges were dropped, by the way, against me, but I was left with one punishment, and it was they felt that I should have reported what I saw someone else doing that I should have seen as a conflict of interest. That's literally what they said I did wrong. So I just need to say to you guys that I'm very sensitive, that when I hear something that someone's doing that at this level of wrong, that I have to communicate it, because I know the punishment you get when you don't. Now, I'm not a religious person, but I did end the interview with David Brill with a proverb, and I'll share it with you right now. With wisdom comes great responsibility. The wisdom you receive is meant to serve a greater good. In Proverb 24:11-12, King Solomon warns us to protect others in harm of danger or sin. We are held responsible for what we know.